Welcome to episode 192 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Golden Ticket Time edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, gentleman, and a scholar, and somebody who attended the Xfinity race at Homestead this past weekend and met up with former contributor, regular contributor to our show in the past, Joe Passero. His name is Joshua Fine. What's going on, brother?
Am doing great, Phil. And yeah, of course, was at Homestead on Saturday to see the Xfinity race, just to see Dale Earnhardt Jr. race one more time here in 2023. And I was talking to Joe, and he was like, "Oh, you're not staying for Cup?" And I was like, "No, I'm just here for Junior." So I was just wanted to go down there, see Dale Jr. race, and see him, compete and run in the Xfinity Series and the Bass Pro Shops number 88 car. So glad I got to see that. Of course, saw the truck race as well, since it was a doubleheader and everything. So yeah, we'll get into that, of course, and also the other racing that went on this weekend here at Homestead and everything, and seeing all that happened, between that and the US Grand Prix here in COTA. So yeah, ready to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a busy weekend in regards to NASCAR with their triple header this weekend at Homestead. Trucks, of course, setting their final four up. The Formula One was at COTA, had a sprint weekend and a regular race, so that was good. It was good if you're a fan of certain guy. If you're a fan of certain other people, it may not be. Finally, for Logan Sargent, we'll get into how he finally scored a point. It wasn't on the racetrack itself. As Brock Purdy throws a completion close to a first down there. They're down 10-0 right now on the road in the second quarter to Minnesota. Right now, so we got the football going on as well. We'll go over week 7 in the NFL and also in our fantasy leagues and our head-to-head matchup as well. Josh and I, first of 2 this season. The next one will be the final week of the regular season for fantasy. So we'll get in all of that. We'll also talk about, all the 3 major NASCAR series, Formula One. Then we'll talk about MotoGP and Moto2 is at Phillip Island dealing with some massive storms, which affected their schedule. F1 Academy and their season finale at COTA. News today about Tony Stewart and one of his entities that he owns, him selling it, so we'll talk about that. WRC Central European Rallies coming up this weekend. They'll be racing in 3 different countries this coming weekend, so that'll be interesting. Surfers Paradise hosts V8 Supercars. Their season's getting close to the end here. The finale for the World Superbike Championship for 2023 will be at Jerez. We'll preview the Nevada Nationals for the NHRA, the next to last race of the 2023 season for them. Formula E had preseason testing, or is going to have preseason testing, and one of the pieces is return to India, to Hyderabad, for season 10. And then the Chris Griffiths test in Indy next, which saw the likes of Jamie Chadwick reappear. She'll be continuing in Indy next, and she did a great job on the Sky broadcast along for Formula One Academy and also when she was on for the Formula One itself. And then Yuvan Sundaramurthy, who's going to be racing full-time next year for Able Motorsports, so that'll be cool. Have a brown guy out there racing and is actually competitive, so that'll actually be cool. We'll preview the Grand Prix of Mexico, which will probably see Fish Lips get booed out of the freaking place, and who knows, probably will need extra security. But he's probably, as long as he's secure, then he's probably going to win. And who will be behind him and all that. We'll do our Cup and Xfinity preview and predictions for the race on this coming weekend and who we think will advance for the guys that haven't already automatically locked themselves in. There's already been 2 in both series, so we'll see who are the other 2 that make it in. Josh will let us know all things going on in the world of iRacing and gaming in his sim segment, and we will close the deal. For the Forever 400, named after Kevin Harvick, it's basically the Kevin Harvick 400 this past weekend, presented by Mobile One. Kevin Harvick was hoping to harken back to 9 years ago when he won the championship and won the race there. Unfortunately, didn't work out that way, but he had a good run, was up front there late to give himself a chance, but in the end, somebody who really wasn't a factor early in the race, and it took a long time for them to become a factor, ended up benefiting, just like last year at Martinsville when Christopher Bell went out there and he needed a Hail Mary kind of result, and he pulled it out of his ass and he did it. And in this case, it was even more of a pull it out of the ass because their car was nowhere for most of the day. Christopher Bell leads 26 laps and wins and locks himself into the championship 4 with Kyle Larson. Larson and Ryan Blaney were the 2 dominant figures in this race. There were those are the 2 main guys, but then you have the likes of Keselowski, Truex, and Hamlin, who we will get into a little bit later. William Byron was up front for a good part of the day. Tyler Reddick started well, but a good starting spot, but didn't end up coming through. This race was a Kyle Larson benefit. He led the most laps, won one stage, and he was battling with Ryan Blaney, who won the other stage, and it was looking like it was going to come down to those 2 guys. The last pit stop, or what was supposed to be the last pit stop scheduled, saw Ryan Blaney come in a little conservatively on a pit road. Kyle Larson was going at about 100 miles an hour and blasted into the sand barriers and knocked himself out of the race, which, doesn't matter because he's already locked into Phoenix, but gave away a victory opportunity for sure when he had one of, if not the best car in the whole entire racetrack. So something to look at, something to see with, he led 96 laps, gets the playoff point. It's not like he left empty-handed by any stretch of the imagination. Could have been a lot worse. But for Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney is going to be left wondering. The late restarts kind of didn't fall in his favor, and then him and Denny Hamlin were having a battle, and he basically called Denny Hamlin a hack with how bad his attempts at sliding Blaney were, and that probably held him back enough. Plus the fact that his car took a while to get going. By the time he was in a position and his car started coming in, it was too little too late. He made one run, I think, there, and recognized that he was better off just going and taking second. But for Blaney, it's for a guy who's only won one race and one points race in the last couple of years or whatever it is, you can't be holding out hope or thinking maybe you're going to get a win. You need to be going out there with that intensity, and it's probably a lost opportunity in a sense of that. But for Christopher Bell, it didn't look like he was going to be in a position to do that at all, and he comes out and late adjustments by Adam Stevens, late just Christopher Bell getting on the wheel and he's now locked into the Final Four, Josh, and it wasn't what the script was, I think, for most of the day. I think we were all assuming it was going to be either Kyle Larson or Ryan Blaney, as Christian McCaffrey gets a touchdown to continue his streak, and the Niners cut the lead down to 10-7 or 10-6, pending an extra point. But Christopher Bell goes out there, gets that victory on Sunday, and clutches up. And comparisons to the guy they named the race for are starting to come up when it comes to Christopher Bell being a closer because of what he did here yesterday.
I mean, I have to agree with that. With Chris Bell, nowhere to be found for most of the first two stages in the race, and then all of a sudden with the door being open with Kyle Larson running into the pit barrier there, that kind of opened the door for anybody to potentially win this race. And then you had the issues with Ryan Blaney after that contact, and William Byron fighting him for the lead there, and that opened the door for Christopher Bell to go there and take the lead on the last set of cautions and the last set of laps there in that race. And for Bell goes in, he was on the, I think he's still able to make it in, but now he locks his way into the playoffs now, and now there's only 2 spots left to lock in. And so for Bell, I mean, I actually picked him, but for a good point of that race, like they were struggling, almost went a lap down, but they were able to keep at it throughout the entire race, and they never gave up. And their strategy worked out, and they were able to find themselves back in the top 5. And then Ryan Blaney and William Byron fighting for a lead, he's able to go and pass them both and take advantage of that, and then continue on. So what a massive opportunity now for Chris Bell. Now he's in the championship race with his dirt rival and Kyle Larson. So they'll both be eligible to compete for the championship. Now we'll see here in Martinsville who takes the final 2 spots here, which I think likely Byron has one of them. So it's really just the last spot that's up for grabs here in this playoff. But what a interesting race we had. I mean, the first couple of laps, battle between Bubba Wallace on the outside and Martin Truex on the bottom. Good fight for the lead for the first 10 laps or so of that race, and then Truex, he looked like he was strong early, but then kind of faded back, and then eventually his engine failed. Then the same caution with Denny Hamlin crashing out. So for Truex, this is a poor break for them. Obviously, they've kind of been backdooring their way because of their playoff points that they've scored throughout the regular season, but now they actually are, they're not going to be able to fall back on that anymore at Martinsville. Now it's a must win for him here at Martinsville, basically. So now we'll see if they actually come out and take a win here. It's going to be tough with Martinsville's hard to pass now these days, and you're basically going to have a good pitch strategy and a really good race car to start out with, and a good start in qualifying. So it's going to be tough for him. And of course, Denny Hamlin, also missed opportunity for him. He led laps throughout the race as well, had speed, but then late in the race, was trying to get up there, and I think he lost sight of the fact of who he was racing against, and he really raced Ryan Blaney there really hard for second place, and really started costing both of them ground there. So I agree with you, Eric. The take that Denny was a hack in that situation. I mean, definitely a very mental midget moment for him there. So just a missed opportunity there for Denny. And then I mean, the wreck of there didn't have anything to do with what he was racing with Ryan Blaney, but still you saw Ryan Blaney on the, I don't know if it was on the broadcast, but on the radio there, once that happened and Denny went right into the wall for whatever reason with this car, and he's like, yeah, F you dickheads. So of course didn't really appreciate the way that Hamlin was racing him there. So, we'll see what Denny has to say about that on his podcast, if he even has it this week, because been checking all day to see if, or last couple hours to see if he had posted his podcast yet, but I guess Denny's going to shut up this week because it's Martinsville. He's got to win to get in, because he's been talking like he's going to make the Final Four here. So we'll see if it actually happens. But yeah, just a interesting race from that perspective. And then, of course, Kyle Larson, who was fighting Ryan Blaney, and I think Ryan Blaney should have won this race, really, if it weren't for that moment with Larson running into the back of him there and coming to pit road. I think that would have, if that would have come out cleanly, I think Blaney probably wins this race, despite Larson probably having the dominant car of the day and everything. So, I think that was really just another mistake that Larson's made. We've seen him make these type of mistakes over the years where he just goes for it just a little too hard, pushes it too hard, and ends up costing himself the race. So we'll see. I mean, luckily he's locked into the Final Four now. So, Larson, of course, just kind of going for broke there. But I wonder if that affected Blaney, because he did hit Blaney in the right rear quarter panel, if that affected the aero in any way. So have to, look at that. But I mean, Blaney still recovered to finish second in that race. And then, Bell wins. Reddick still holds on to a shot, but he's not really that good. Martinsville and Byron, of course, is virtually locked in as long as he doesn't have a complete disaster there. So, good finishes for them. Of course, AJ Allmendinger, first place of the non-playoff contenders, kind of a surprising effort there, but he also finished top 10 in this race last year. So, good effort there for him. But yeah, I mean, this race definitely, very entertaining throughout the race. A lot of, passing, a lot of, the high line, continuing, throughout the race, seeing them up against the wall. And I mean, it shows why this race should have been the final, race of the season rather than, Phoenix, and everything. I think this, race has a lot more as a racing. We'll get into in a little bit with, how I was there at Xfinity, but, my thoughts on that. But, the racing itself, I think, is way superior than Phoenix, and no way that Phoenix should be the final race of the year for the championship. It should be Homestead or any other track that actually requires you to search and find different lines without a help of PJ1 or the grip strip or anything like that. So it's definitely a good race, and definitely one of the better races that we've seen this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I agree on the fact that Homestead should have the championship finale, but for whatever reason, the people in control in Daytona think that it makes more sense to have the race at Phoenix, and Jordan Addison goes and gets a touchdown. That's lovely. So now they're up 16-7. I think Greg Joseph missed the extra point, but the Niners are down going into halftime here on Monday Night Football. So their productivity has not exactly been great here the last week or so, week and a half, in terms of their gameplay. Yeah, they're down 16-7 with 7 seconds to go. Yeah, it's been a bad week for me in picks too. A lot of bad losses going on, but I mean, Blaney should have won the damn race. I agree on that. Homestead should still have this finale. I just love that race. I don't know what it is. I just love that racetrack. It's everything that you want in a intermediate oval. You want the ability to race multiple grooves. You want to have tire wear play a role. You want to be able to actually have to race each other and race the racetrack. Yeah, Mooney Ward just got freaking jacked by like it was Debo. Oh man, that is pathetic. But just going through the results here: Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, William Byron, AJ Allmendinger round out your top 5. Great run, as Josh mentioned there, for AJ. We don't know if he's going to be in Cup or he's going to be in Xfinity next year. Dale Earnhardt Jr., Keebler Gibbs, Pizza Face Joey Logano, Eric Almirola, and in his home game, essentially. I don't know which one is considered the home game. You could tell me better, Josh, but whether it's Homestead or if it's Daytona, and then Bald Spot Dylan round out your top 10. A lot of cars went and took the wave around there later in the race. There was way less cars than that. There was like 10 cars on the lead lap when Ryan Blaney had got that yellow when he was pitting, and Larson hit the sand barrels. And then I think a bunch of people took the wave around because there was that wreck right afterwards. It was, and that involved J.J. Yaley, and then John Hunter, Brad Keselowski, and Ross Chastain. Brad Keselowski had a car earlier in the day that was really good, but issues for him as the day went on made it tougher for him. Martin Truex ends up blowing an engine, and his nightmare of a playoff continues. And I don't know what we're gonna talk about it later, but he was running decent. I mean, he scored some stage points, led a few laps. It wasn't like it was gonna be a terrible scenario like it has been for a lot of this playoff, but blowing an engine late puts him in a really bad spot. Denny Hamlin, whatever you want to consider his racecraft there late in the race, that wasn't the full-on reason why that accident happened. It was a mechanical issue, but Denny Hamlin, your talk about I'm the guy, it's my year, whatever. You're definitely not looking like that when you're making some of the moves that he was making. It is a house of horrors for him in a sense. Even though he's won there 3 times, he's also choked away multiple opportunities at championships at Homestead too. So for Hamlin, it's going to be hard. He's going to be in the same kind of spot as Truex heading into Martinsville this coming weekend. But when you look at the stage points, it was very clustered amongst a few drivers. There wasn't a whole hell of a lot of movement forward. I mean, Logano in the end moved forward from tailback, Almirola from 30th, and Allmendinger, but you have a lot of these guys, they weren't able to get stage points. I guess there was some, Harvick from 22nd, Gumby, Preece. Chase Briscoe had a better car. He said it on his socials where they had a pit road issue, and then they had one other, like the sequence of pit stops that didn't land right, and then they had a pit road issue with caution and all that. So he ends up 17th, but probably had way more than that. When you see Almirola finish 9th and Harvick finished 11th, Preece. So the notion is he probably could have finished with his teammates up there, but unfortunately, 17th is what he leaves the racetrack with. But he's going to 2 racetracks, which he feels very good about, in Martinsville and Phoenix, here for the last 2 races of the season. I mean, I want to ask you, Josh, in regards to, you brought up Hamlin, but for Martin Truex, it's a situation where, for Chris Buescher too, both of those guys had terrible days, or it ended up a terrible day for Truex. It wasn't initially a terrible day like most of these races have been. Buescher was nowhere, while Brad Keselowski was up front. By the end of the day, of course, Keselowski gets involved in that wreck and then isn't anywhere to be seen, just logging laps. For those 2 guys, the playoff has not been fruitful. They came into the playoff with a lot of momentum. Truex being he was a regular season champion. Buescher winning races getting into the playoff, and now both of them are in a must-win scenario. What were your thoughts on both of their performances before we move forward into the points?
I mean, Truex, the first half of that race, I mean, was up front, led laps, and even before the engine failure was still in the top 10. Obviously, had a issue there with his pit stops and stuff, and you heard some of the frustration on the radio that he was frustrated with how their pit stops were performing. So it was looking to be like a typical Truex race, but looking like they might have an okay finish. But now with the engine failure, that's pretty much probably the nail in the coffin for them, unless they just come out with a good finish at Martinsville and get a win there. And Chris Buescher, I mean, just nowhere to be found for whatever reason. They just ended up a lap down pretty early in that one, and although they end up getting their lap back at the end and finishing on the lead lap, they were a lap down for a good part of that race. And kind of a contrast between Keselowski and him, because Keselowski was up front, like you said, and ran up front for most of that race, and then by the end, they didn't have the issues there with because they were in the wreck towards the end. So definitely those two guys in must-win situations, and kind of hard to trust with Chris Buescher. Hard to trust if he's able to even really contend at Martinsville. We've never, in that the Roush cars, we've never really seen him contend there really. And although he's won at Bristol, but it's a different type of short track there. And Martin Truex, of course, has won at Martinsville before, so it's definitely possible. But Truex is a guy that he could pull it out of the hat, but he's definitely got a tall order there for him to try to make it into the playoffs. Final four.
Yeah, it's gonna be difficult just based on what he's been doing the last 8 weeks to really believe that he's gonna go out there and somehow or another come through and get that victory that he needs to get himself across the line. The points right now, 8 out of 10 races in, 2 races to go. Bell leads the overall point standings by 5 over Kyle Larson. And he doesn't actually. He doesn't lead overall. Byron does. But but Bell and Larson are already in. Byron leads the points overall and has a 30-point lead over the cutoff. Ryan Blaney has a 10-point lead over the cutoff. Tyler Reddick, with his 3rd place finish, gets himself to within 10 points of Blaney. Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex are minus 17, and Chris Buescher is 43 points back. So, to be perfectly honest, granted, Hamlin or Truex, if they qualify well and they are able to earn the stage points, keep their track position, and say Ryan Blaney doesn't qualify well, that point deficit could flip around. I don't think William Byron is going to be put himself in a position to where he's going to have an issue. But stranger things have happened. Larson doesn't have to worry about Martinsville. He finally has one there, of course, but it's never been one of his best racetracks. Bell can go there and try to get another, win. It won't make any difference in regards to the reset, but it's the mix is really, unless Byron has a nightmare scenario, it's Blaney against Blaney and Reddick head to head, but the 2 Gibbs guys having to go and win at a track which they've won at with a pretty high percentage. So we'll see what happens with that for those guys. We'll move towards the Xfinity Series, which Josh will talk about here. Got to attend the Contender Boats 300 at Homestead on Saturday afternoon evening, and saw Sam Mayer, Gumby, Pizza Face, Accutane Ace. I don't know. We need to figure out a nickname for him. Sam Mayer goes out there, holds off Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst in the last 2 weeks has went from being an absolute bum bastard to actually looking like he knows how to drive a race car. I don't know what got into him, but he went and won at Vegas at home, and then now he was battling Sam Mayer, and he's in a position where he could really factor into his next 2 races to finish out the year and put himself in the mix, at least initially, as a championship contender for 2024. But the race results: Contender Boats 300 at Homestead. Sam Mayer gets the victory over Riley Herbst, John Hunter Nemechek, Austin Hill, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Round out the top 5. Daniel Hemrick was 6th. Parker Kligerman, Buckshot Jones, Sammy Smith, and Joe Graff Jr. driving a Wawa Toyota finishes 10th. Derek Kraus won the second stage. Cole Custer won the first stage, started on pole, led the most laps. It's a track, one of his best racetracks, period. He's won there multiple times in an Xfinity car. I was looking back at the picks. Neither of us had picked Custer, and I guess we were both right on that, but Josh actually was picked the winner for the Cup Series with Chris Bell, and then we're going to get into the trucks. He got that one. We both got the Formula One by default because, or no, you got both because you picked fish lips for both. But so it goes back once again. If you really want to make picks and put some money, you're better off listening to Josh. That's for sure, because he's way more accurate. But Sam Mayer wasn't we weren't thinking of Sam Mayer at all. But in the end, Sam Mayer goes out there, leads second most laps on the day, locks himself into the final 4. And I mean, it was a pretty tame race. There was only one major incident, multi-car incident, which affected 2 of the playoff guys in Chandler Smith and Sheldon Creed, along with Moffitt. Josh Berry had a single car incident, but a pretty tame race in general. And it had a long green flag field. 12 cars were on the lead lap. Kraus was 11th. Parker Retzloff was 12th, the last car on the lead lap. So, Josh, I'll give you the floor. What were your what did you experience there on Saturday, and being at the racetrack, and also what the race was like in your view, with Junior being there, going and hitting, running the boards, which is one of his favorite things to do. His kids weren't really feeling all that happy about being there, but he was happy to be there, and he showed it, even though he did door his employee amongst other people.
Of course, I mean, it was just really good to be there on Saturday. It was pretty hot. I'll start out with that. I mean, I know in Florida it's started to cool off now here in the last couple of weeks, but down, very south of Florida is still in the low mid 80s throughout the day, clear sunny skies throughout the day. So, from that perspective, it was going to be kind of hot outside. It wasn't like terrible or anything like that, but still, the sun clear and everything beating down on you. So, had to layer. My strategy there for protecting myself from the sun, I just had a long sleeve sun shirt. I guess like it's not a hoodie, but it's just kind of like one of those long sleeve Under Armour type shirts that has a hoodie on it. So wore that and had on sunglasses and everything like that, and just put on a lot of sunblock otherwise to protect myself. So that was my strategy there, since it was pretty sunny and everything. But the facility, I mean, I'll start out with that. It's pretty pretty barren compared to Daytona. Having been to Daytona now, that's the only other NASCAR track I've actually been to. But there wasn't really a whole lot outside the track, and it was out kind of in the farmland and all that stuff. But the facility itself, is bench seats, whereas Daytona has stadium seating and all that stuff. And the amenities and all that stuff still kind of not as on the scale of Daytona. But not saying it's a knock, but saying that if you're expecting I'm not gonna say it's not a world-class facility, but it's definitely feels a step down from Daytona, and that's one reason why it's at Phoenix, because Phoenix wouldn't put a bunch of upgrades into their facility and stuff, and there's a whole lot of amenities and all that stuff at Phoenix, where Homestead's kind of a little bit lacking in that department, even though it has a better race facility, I think. So maybe that's one factor there. So yeah, it was okay looking. Joe was telling me that he was a little bit disappointed in the facility there, and he told me that it kind of reminded him of Pocono in some ways with how it's constructed. I've never been to Pocono, so I knew you have, so you might be able to have some insight into that. But it's definitely, it's still a pretty good racetrack to go to, I think, and everything. So I set up at the tippy top, at the very top of the stadium there, or the seating there for the Xfinity race. So sat on turn 4, so I had a good view of what they were able to do coming through turn 4, or 3 and 4 in the center there, and coming off turn 4 onto the front straight. I was able to get a good view over there. Truck race, I sat in turn 1 for the first part of it. We'll get into that later, but I liked the view that I was getting there with how they were running through the corner. I definitely liked that part of the racetrack where you could see them coming through the corner and see what they were doing. So I like that part of it as well. The race itself, it was trying to just follow Dale Jr. the whole way through. He was trying to see what he's doing. He was fighting in the top 15 for a good part of that after the beginning of the race, and I was like, oh well, what are they doing? He's only running 15th, and he's got to pick it up, and they just kept working on it, I guess, and then by the final stage they were running in the top 10, so they end up getting a top 5 there. So obviously, as a fan, really, you want to see a win, but I knew that was probably unlikely, given he's only running 2 races, and the rest of the field that's there every week, and he's not really in race shape, compared to the other guys. He even said it on his show earlier today that they released. He wasn't really in good condition compared to everybody else, and also he was coming off of a bout of pneumonia, so still kind of recovering from that. So physically not quite in the best shape, and plus it's still hot outside, and for them it's probably even hotter inside the car. So top 5, glad to see that come through. Of course, they missed the wreck with Chandler Smith, and beginning of stage 3. There's the wreck there with him and Brett Moffitt, and Junior was right there, but he was able to get by unscathed. So glad to see that happen. Of course, the restart, after I think the second caution before the end of the race was for debris, and they had a restart there, and Sheldon Creed took the lead there, staying out on old tires, and then he ended up having a bad restart. Junior tries to go to the middle, and I think Josh Berry was on the outside of him, and then they collided off of turn 2 there, and saw some smoke there. So I was wondering what was happening, and then on top of that, then Josh Berry gets into the wall. So that was a really interesting part of that race, and I was thinking, oh, maybe it's over now for Junior, but Junior was able to stay out there. Thought maybe he had a flat tire, but they were able to evaluate that with help from Brandon Jones, with help from his crew and everything. So glad that he didn't have to pit and basically give up his race there. So still happy to see him finish and plus they didn't have any tires left after that anyway, so glad to see him finish in the top 5 and take home a good race there. Of course, saw him on I tweeted it out on my Twitter, the pre-race intros, saw him on the truck there, so I was able to say, let's go Junior and everything like that. So glad to see him in person like that. And also was able to, in the middle of the truck race, was trying to get away from the sun for a little bit and went back down to the fan midway area, and they had the Chevy display there, and was able to see Josh Berry, Sam Mayer, and Brandon Jones. They were answering questions and giving autographs. So I was able to get all three of their autographs. Barry autographed a shirt that I got at the Chevy display, and then Mayer and Brandon Jones had their hero cards, and so they autographed those. So I was able to score those. So I actually got autographed from a winning driver of the race. So that's pretty cool. So Sam Mayer winning, of course, and the race itself, besides the junior part of it, it was kind of random to see Derek Kraus, who was running towards the back half of the field, really in the first part of the race in the stage 1. Then all of a sudden, just kind of comes out of nowhere to win stage 2, and everything is all of a sudden to see him up front. I was like, where the hell did he come from? And then he ends up finishing 11th. So good race, and I guess one of his first races here in Xfinity. So for him, but you have that, and then the finish of the race, was kind of focusing on Junior, and thought Sam Mayer had kind of driven away from the field. He was able to get around John Hunter and get around Riley Herbst and everybody else, but then Riley Herbst was able to charge on the last part of the race, and almost got him there on the finish and turn 3 and 4. But I think Mayer on the high side still had the momentum and was able to carry that through the last corner there to beat Riley Herbst back to the line. So Sam Mayer all of a sudden in the final 4 here in the Xfinity Series, and has a chance to possibly win a title. We'll see how it happens. Junior Motorsports hasn't been the best at Phoenix lately, but they have a good chance of having that happen. The other playoff guys, Cole Custer, had a flat tire running into the wall, so he ended up losing a lap there. Justin Allgaier kind of had the same deal and ended up finishing 15th after kind of being in the top 5 for the first part of the race. So, those two guys kind of missed opportunities there for both of them. But I thought overall still great race. Relatively clean for the most part. Definitely had a lot of fun seeing that and seeing the trucks as well. So, glad to be there for Homestead. I'd been thinking about it, over the last couple months since they made the announcement. I kind of mentally decided that I was going to go, and then I just, since it's not a race that's really in demand, I was like, well, probably can just get away with getting general admission tickets or something like that, and was able to do that for the first, part of the week here and plan for that. And I went on Saturday only really because of Dale Jr., but also because I'd already been out in the sun anyways on the Jaguars game on last Sunday and gotten sunburnt from that. And then, didn't want to have to go reserve a hotel and pay, get overcharged on that end because I obviously hadn't reserved it or anything like that. So, I was able to leave the Space Coast 7 a.m. and then come back at 10:30. I left actually closer to 8 and then came back around 10:30. So a good little day trip down to Miami and back and everything. So that was fun. Never been to Homestead. I would go back, so that'll be fine. And plus, they got a go-kart facility there too that I've got to check out at some point, at some other time. So look forward to being able to do that at some other time. And then also on the way back on 985, before I got to my area, I was able to pass by Jeremy Clement's hauler and pass by 2 of the Jordan Anderson Racing haulers. So it's kind of interesting seeing the haulers come back or pass by them coming back from the race. So kind of cool to see that. But obviously they're driving all the way back up to Mooresville or wherever in that vicinity in North Carolina. So just glad to be there, like I said, for that race, and glad to see Dale Jr. race in person, for the first time since probably 2013 or 2015, seeing him race there in person. So glad to be able to take advantage of that opportunity while he's here in my state. So being able to do that. So we'll see where he races next year if I decide to go to one of those, that'd be cool. But taking advantage of the opportunity while you have the chance to do that, is always a great opportunity to be able to take advantage. So glad to have been there and see Dale Jr. race.
Yep, and it's, you never know. It's like how going and seeing Smoke, for me, I didn't get to watch Smoke for the last few years of his. I think the last time I saw him race was in I think 2019 or 18 or not 2019, 18. It was in 16, of course. Yeah, because that was his final year. I'm trying to remember where I saw. If it was Pocono or if it was Richmond, was the last time I saw him race. But when it is your favorite driver and they're limited opportunities, of course, in Junior's case, he is able to go and, with the sponsorships that they have there, pick and choose his spots in regards to where he wants to race. And Amy allows him, and Amy and Kelly allow him to race twice a year. So we'll see how long that continues as we go on here. But for Sam Mayer, one of his drivers, one of his pupils, he goes out and gets that crucial victory and locks himself in. Phoenix, of course, last year they had 3 of the 4 drivers in the Final Four and ended up not coming through with the championship to Keebler-Gibbs, which, when you look at what transpired afterwards, probably makes a lot of sense. But yeah, Phoenix is not a great racetrack theoretically for junior motorsports outside of Justin Allgaier, so it's something that we have to look at in general as we move forward. The Truck Series also ran earlier in the day, as Josh mentioned. Got to go and see that. Before I get into all that, let's get into the points. Sam Mayer locked in. John Hunter has a plus 44, is 44 points above the cut, and it's right now a 3 for 2, three drivers for 2 spots. Cole Custer and Austin Hill are plus 3 over Justin Allgaier. So every point is going to count for all 3 of those drivers. After you get past that, the Smiths and Sheldon Creed, they need to win. That's the only way they're going to advance into the Final Four. That's another big play, of course. Mooney Ward is just getting toasted. Oh. Yeah, illegal contact. Oh, lovely. Even better. And another first down. Yeah, Mooney Ward's having a great day today. Yeah, so that's where the points are at. Qualifying and the stage point are going to be big for those 3 drivers as we go on. And then when you consider Chandler Smith is leaving Colleague and probably going to go to Joe Gibbs Racing next year, what is the likelihood of him getting the best of it to try and advance? There's also Psy Apps or whatever has been on Sieg's car. They've been running CJ McLaughlin's Useless Behind on and off for a while, and now they're going to sponsor him for the full season next year. They're going to sponsor Ryan Sieg itself, so he'll be able to have funding, which is good for him and his family-run organization. All right, last race that we have to get into is the Baptist Health Cancer Care 200 for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. And saw that another is that flag? No, did they stop? No, it is a flag. They're gonna go. No, they're gonna call a PI or something.
That's a PI.
This does not look good the way the Niners are playing right now. But the results of the race, that's not what I wanted. The results of the race, come on, Cheffer, say something, you idiot. Oh yeah, there you go. Was that illegal hands to the face? Or they called it. Oh man. Where? Oh, they're gonna say, what the hell? What kind of garbage is that? Really? He's falling. It has nothing to do with Lenore.
I mean, the arm grab. Are they calling it for the arm grab that he did before that, or I don't know?
I mean, that's they're having hand fighting there. I mean, it's somebody flopped over there, but I don't think they got in. Yeah. Oh God, this is
now the
not
tush
good.
Push. Oh yeah, you can't. Kirk Cousins can't do a keepy sneak. He's not a.
The brotherly shove is not going to work with Kirk Cousins. Oh man, Fred Warner was totally on that. That's what it was. Yeah, Fred Warner pulled a Troy Polamalu and launched himself over the line. They're going to try it again, and it was even worse this time. That's got to be an illegal procedure. There's no way. All right. I apologize. I'm locked into this because right now they're down 9 points. And this could mean that they're going to be down 16 points depending on how this goes. They're going to call a false start or encroachment. Ugh, come on. Oh, they didn't call or they did? Ugh, Jesus.
Illegal snap, that's there.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank God. Yeah, because he went and made a move so that the player would go across. So now they're away, so they can't do any of the brotherly shove crap. Probably they were better off with the brotherly shove crap because they've been giving up yards aplenty as long as there's been space. Yeah, so the Truck Series, the win went to Carson Hocevar, fourth of his 2023 season, gets himself into the Final Four. Ben Rhodes did not finish second on the road, but ended up with second post-race, which is something we're going to get into here shortly with the Formula One race. And, it's an incomplete pass? Okay. And then Corey Heim, Grant Enfinger round out the top four. Bailey Curry getting a fifth place finish. Stuball, Matt Crafton, Raja Caruth, Josh's usual wild card pick, gets another top 10. Ty Majeski, a former winner at Homestead, finished 9th, and Chase Purdy rounding out your top 10. The other guys who had stage points, Nick Sanchez, who qualified on pole, but made a mistake during on pit road, got involved in an incident on pit road, and that incident destroyed the front end of his what do we call Gainbridge Chevrolet, and relegated him to 17th place finish. Eckes finished 20th, pulling a Denny Hamlin, and then Tyler Ankrum got one stage point. Zane Smith, excuse me, I think he did have stage points, but of course those disappeared when he got disqualified. He finished second on the road, was battling Carson Hocevar there late in the race, trying to get himself into another Final Four. This is going to be the first time in his truck career that he isn't making the Final Four. So it shows how prolific he has been. The defending series champion will not defend his championship. DQ put that in the mix. They still show that Zane Smith led the race, though. So I don't know. I guess they can't take away that he led laps. So
yeah,
I don't know. You could take everything else away, but but he led laps, so whatever. Hocevar gets the win. Makes that pass on Ben Rhodes with 11 to go. Or not Ben Rhodes, but it's I don't know. He makes the late race pass, and then Zane Smith was up there trying to battle for his life, but in the end, Hocevar, Corey Heim has shown himself to be the class of the field this year. Won both stages, led the most laps, solidified himself. He already was in the Final Four, but he is the favorite. And but Carson Hocevar is going to be that guy that is a likely person that's going to give him the biggest fight for that championship. And getting a win at Homestead, I think, solidifies that. Hocevar has went and made his stock even more valuable as this year has gone on, and he didn't do anything to disprove that notion of him being one of the best talents in this sport with that victory on Saturday afternoon, Josh.
Yeah, Hocevar, of course, ran in that race, and he ran really well throughout. He only led 11 laps, but he had top 5 speed all day. Obviously, I was there and saw that race first before the Xfinity race. So I saw the first stage, and then second stage, like I said, went down to the fan area and everything. But the first stage, Corey Heim just led a lot of laps there in that stage and looked like early on the dominant car. Hocevar, I think, had the second best car behind him there. So it was clear that those two guys were probably going to be the front runners here in that race. And then, later on, Ben Rhodes, I think, just went on a Hail Mary strategy there to try to make it in. And it worked for them because, not only did Zane Smith get disqualified, but they were able to, stay out on old tires long enough to where, they had the lead for a good bit, but then, they were able to just stick around long enough where they netted themselves at the time a third place finish, and was well ahead of Corey Heim to be able to not have to worry about falling back any further. I actually initially thought that he was going to win the race, but then Hocevar was eating away at his lead, and it was going to only be a matter of time before Hocevar would have the lead over him. And then Rhodes was able to hold on there for third place at the time. And Zane Smith, of course, unfortunate that he gets disqualified, but he I guess last ditch effort to make the Final Four here for him. Didn't make it in. He would have had to win, which that would have been big if he had won, and then they DQ'd him after the race. But he had I guess that's a throwback to Kevin Harvick earlier this year with his penalty at Talladega. But the race was pretty interesting. Seeing the truck race. I've actually never seen a truck race before, even at Daytona. I've never been to a Daytona truck race. So surprisingly, this one was fairly calm, compared to what we usually see in the truck series. So seeing that, but I was in turn 1 for the first stage and saw them on corner entry, how it looked like they were drifting. And I guess McCaffrey's getting a touchdown, so I guess you're happy there. So good for the 49ers. But seeing them run the bottom versus the top on corner entry, you could see on the bottom the trucks were drifting for the first part of quarter entry, sliding the tires. So it was kind of interesting to see how that approach happened, compared to Daytona, where everything's flat out. You can actually see them operate the car and figure out things. And that's one other thing I was going to say, is just seeing the differences in corner entry speeds when somebody was trying to pass on the bottom, just seeing how big of a difference that was. That was something I had never really appreciated before. at least on an oval. So, yeah, that was obviously pretty cool to see all of that and everything. Marco Andretti was kind of interested in his performance because this is the first time he's raced on an oval in a stock car here, but he ran 18th here, so I think for him probably just needed more practice there. So would have liked to have seen him have more time behind the wheel. I think a guy like him that doesn't have as much experience in this series, probably even though he's been to Homestead before, but in IndyCar probably definitely needs more time in the truck to get used to it and everything. So, but still a decent debut for having little experience in the series. Of course, Nick Sanchez, ran up front, had the pole early on. Kind of, disappointing ending to the season there, falling back to 17th and finishing a lap down. So, tough deal for that guy and how he, his season ends up. So, thought he would be a lock in the playoffs. I think we both said, or at least I said, that there'd be no changes in the Final Four from before Homestead, and that didn't work. And obviously, you picked Sanchez and he didn't win. So, that's a tough deal for him. But he's a rookie and everything, so he'll have time to grow and time to get better at this. So we'll see how he does next year. So, Final Four ends up being Hocevar, Corey Heim, Grant Enfinger gets in as well, and Ben Rhodes and everything. So, of course, that's a solid Final Four. I think all of them could be deserving of the title when it's all said and done at Phoenix. So, we'll see how it goes. But I definitely think it's going to be an interesting race there for sure. Once in 2 weeks, once that happens. But those guys, they've all had pretty good seasons, and I think all of them can be definitely a good champion in this series for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be something. We'll talk about it more next week on episode 193, our thoughts on the Final Four in more detail. But for you got Corey Heim, Carson Hocevar. Those two were two of the three major players. And then you had Christian Eckes. Christian Eckes having a nightmare round of the playoffs. He was a factor for a good amount of this season, and to not make the Final Four, I think, is a real disappointment for the McAnally Hilgeman driver. There are some changes coming to the organization. Jake Garcia is leaving. Somebody just got hurt, and for the 49ers. Probably going to a break. We were talking about those three guys. Those are the three main players. Definitely Corey Heim has been the lead dog this whole entire season. And now we get to going to Phoenix next week. It is really about him. And now, Grant Enfinger has always been known for pulling stuff out of his ass. It's the last race for GMS. It's something where the timing and everything, it could be, it's not out of the realm that Grant Enfinger can get a Hail Mary win. You see how Legacy's been racing here the last couple months. Maybe Grant Enfinger has something, and then Ben Rhodes somehow or another gives Doorsport a representative in the Final Four. It definitely wasn't lining up that way. The playoff, because of Nick Sanchez because of the better finish in this round, the second place that he got, he ends up getting in on a tiebreaker, the former series champion. So there is somebody who could become a two-time series champion if Ben Rhodes was somehow or another able to win. Nick Sanchez falling short, not getting the win. I just figured he was going to win at some point this year. It's interesting that Carson Hocevar It was a battle with Carson Hocevar and him making contact with Nick Sanchez at Texas, which ended up having Carson Hocevar win his first career race. That moment was key into this whole entire situation. Now, Sanchez wins that race. Who knows where the points are at, et cetera, et cetera. But it's interesting how a race in June could have made such a big difference in the final results. I mean, it's 0 points after 22 races, so it could have been lost any number of places. But I think for Ty Majeski, after the penalty, the tire bleeder penalty, all the energy had basically been taken out of that team. Zane Smith's team for the second half of this season has been off because he knew he was leaving. They hadn't looked very, very good. So it's not shocking that it ended up going to hell for him. Not because of his talent, it's just they weren't there. Eckes spitting the bit and pulling a Denny Hamlin was very surprising to me, considering his pedigree in the past has been as a championship level driver. I mean, he did drive for Kyle Busch Motorsports and was like kind of mid. So, I mean, there's been plenty of examples of guys at Kyle Busch Motorsports being mid and then getting sent and then being all right afterwards. But yeah, it is what it is right there. Nick Sanchez, we don't know what he's going to be doing next year. Going to work under the assumption that he'll be driving for Spire because of the funding and all that, and because they're going to run multiple trucks. So we'll see what happens with that. And so they all get reset going into Phoenix. Will put in more details or give more details on all that next week on episode 193. Stephen Parsons will be driving the Rackley War 25 at Phoenix, so it's a pretty good opportunity for Stephen. You could make an argument it's probably the best opportunity he's ever had in any of NASCAR's 3 major series. So hopefully he can get a decent qualifying run. He's run well at times, of course, this year in Xfinity, so it'll be cool for him to race in a decent piece of equipment, and his dad gets to go and announce him racing. Dean Thompson will come back for Tricon. He's a big social media presence, so good for him. So there's that. Let's move forward to the US Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas, which saw we both predicted Fish Lips winning, but it wasn't as straightforward as it has been for most of the year. He did have a pretty straightforward Saturday after qualifying on pole in the sprint shootout. Took a lights the flag win, did do a little bit argy-bargy and not get penalized for it against Charles Leclerc. He also did go past track limits and they didn't penalize him for it in the sprint shootout. So it is what it is with that. He goes and gets that, but on Friday he had put in a run that would have given him the pole for the Grand Prix itself, but he got penalized for track limits there, and the FIA promptly went and repainted the lines on all the corners where they're watching track limits because their chosen hero made an error because he was pushing so hard because he can't deal with actually having a race, which is interesting how that all works. But in the end, is one of his BFFs, Lando Norris, qualified in second, and Charles Leclerc qualified on pole. But Leclerc didn't make a good start, and Norris passed him and took off. Fish Lips had to battle and took time to move up through the field, and eventually did earn what is his 50th career Formula One victory, joining 3 other drivers in Alain Prost, Sebastian Vettel, and Sir Lewis Hamilton as drivers with 50 or more Formula One wins. He just needs 2 more to pass Alain Prost, and then I think Sebastian Vettel is at 53. So it's entirely possible by the end of this year that Fish Lips will have the second most wins in Formula One history. And that's with 2 ridiculous years that he's had where he's been the dominant presence. 15th win of the year, 2023, as well, breaking his record from last year. On the road, Lewis Hamilton was chasing him in the race. Bad pit stops and probably questionable strategy by Mercedes left Lewis to have to work. And but he was moving up. I think given better pit stops, he could have been in a position to get that elusive 104th victory. It should be victory number 105. But that's Abu Dhabi too. But the Lewis ended up finishing second on the road. Lando Norris was third. And post-race, a couple hours after the race ended, both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc were disqualified for wear issues on the plank on the bottom of the car. One particular area of the plank was worn excessively. It was more prominent on Lewis's car compared to Charles Leclerc. They're walking off TJ Hawkinson, so that doesn't look good on National Tight End Day or Tight End Weekend. That's one of their key players too for Minnesota. So Lewis gets penalized, gets disqualified. Now his gap to second place for Sergio Perez to possibly take that over is 39 points. It's going to be a big ask for him to go and get that gap cut down for sure. But Josh, the race itself, it was topsy-turvy in a lot of ways. There was a lot of action going on. People falling out. Ocon and Piastri getting into it on the start in turn 1 and getting damaged, so both of them had to retire. Fernando Alonso having overheating issues and the car basically shutting down. Ferrari doing Ferrari things and taking Charles Leclerc out of the race itself. But Lewis Hamilton was one of the big stories, along with Lando Norris yesterday. But Lando Norris ends up getting another second place finish, while Lewis Hamilton is left to wonder what could have been. For me personally, I'm glad he didn't win the race, because if he had won the race and they DQ'd him, the amount of stuff that would be going on in social media would in general towards the FIA would be pretty bad. So that is what it is right there in the main race. And you talked about Fish Lips winning the sprint. With Hamilton and Charles Leclerc were on the podium for that one. So, but we'll get into the other pieces. Williams benefiting, being the biggest beneficiary, I think, of anybody of the disqualifications, because they end up getting a double points finish. What do you call Alex Albon goes and finishes I'm trying, where's the result? I don't know. View latest news. Trying to stay sad, declare. Schedule. That's what I need to do. So the United States Grand Prix saw Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz round out the podium. That wasn't the actual result, but that was what it ended up being. Then Sergio Perez ends up finishing 4th, George Russell 5th, Gasly, Stroll, Yuki Tsunoda, Alexander Albon, and Logan Sargent getting his first career point in Formula One, becoming the first American to score points since Michael Andretti at the 1993 Italian Grand Prix, where Andretti came from a lap down after having issues to come back, get back on the lead or lap, or I don't know if he did or not, but he finished 3rd in what ended up being his last Grand Prix of his career. So a big day for Logan Sargent. Wasn't what he initially did. He was walking off pretty forlornly, finishing 12th, but ends up getting a massive point in his try to actually keep his job. And so, there's a lot to dive into, Josh. The guy that usually wins did win, but he was having issues with his brakes and he was freaking out on the radio. If it was anybody else or if it was a certain person, they'd be making a big deal about it. But in his case, he can probably curse out GP and tell all the people in his team to go and eat a bag of dicks and it wouldn't matter. But he goes and gets that milestone victory on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting ending there to that race. You know, as I was watching the end there, I thought Lewis might actually have a shot to win, but the delta between him and Verstappen wasn't moving quickly enough in his direction. He was taking time out of his lap, but it was taking too long, and you know, it was one of those deals where, you know, if he had maybe 1 or 2 more laps, he would have gotten him. But of course, you know, the race is only 56 laps, and I mean, it wouldn't have mattered anyway if they disqualified him there. So, which obviously it would have been very controversial there. So, you know, Lewis gets DQ'd and ruins you know, whatever race he had there. So, of course, Max ends up winning, but I mean, still had to work for it and still issues with the brakes. So it's not like it's an easy going. Plus, you know, Lewis was pressuring him at the end. So, you know, it's not a total walk in the park for Verstappen there, and still gets the milestone victory of 50 career wins, which is crazy because still seems like he's a pretty young guy and everything. And, you know, he's gotten this many wins in Formula One. And yeah, Lando, you know, of course, led early, but obviously, the two-stop strategy is probably the way to go for everybody in Red Bull. Obviously, with Verstappen, they're able to pull that off. And yeah, I mean, I think for Mercedes, if they had kind of gone with the same strategy that Red Bull had, I think they would have had a chance. And especially with the tires that he had compared to what Verstappen had, you know, definitely would have been an opportunity there for Lewis to potentially get it. And then, of course, you know, the beginning of the race, Ocon, Piastri make contact, and they both retire. Then Fernando Alonso retires later on. Leclerc gets disqualified. So, yeah, definitely a lot that happened in this Grand Prix. Of course, now we have an American guy finally getting points here for the first time since Michael Andretti in 1993. So, definitely a significant there, but of course that's, you know, also from penalties, so he didn't initially finish in the top 10. So you have to wonder if for Williams, when, you know, if they make their decisions in the off season of where to go with Logan Sargent, you know, do they give him credit for getting the point, or they're like, well, you got it on a technicality, so we're going to go in a different direction or something like that. That's gonna be interesting to see how they make that evaluation there. One thing he brought up with especially with Max Verstappen exceeding track limits in qualifying. I was seeing the discourse on Twitter with Parker Clearman and Dale Jr. And other people talking about track limits and saying it's ridiculous that there is track limits in F1, and that if you have to have track limits, then maybe you designed the track wrong. And it's an interesting discourse there, and very, very American in that we don't like the idea of having these types of rules in restricting the ability of where cars can go and everything. And of course, it's a interesting discourse there, but wonder how can they fix that, or if that should be a thing. And I mean, personally myself, maybe there should just be natural track limits, like having grass and having things that would make it a disadvantage to exceed the track limits, rather than just having paved areas or paved runoffs, of course. But of course, there's also the safety aspect as well. So I wanted to briefly touch on that because, of course, that's always been a discourse as of late of whether that's really a violation or anything, or if there's truly an advantage that's gained when you exceed the track limits just barely or by a lot. So I mean, it's always good to see that type of discussion, especially from people who are outside who might be able to give a better perspective or different perspective on these type of deals. So yeah, that's a pretty good, fairly interesting US Grand Prix, of course, compared to last couple of years. So at least the finish was somewhat interesting, even though the guy we all expected to win the race. So now we'll go to Mexico Grand Prix, and saw some rumors that potentially Sergio Perez is going to announce his retirement from F1 at the Mexican Grand Prix. So that's potential rumor that could happen. We'll see. We'll find out in a few days, I guess, if that ends up being the case. But honestly, wouldn't be surprised. But of course, got did dirty the last couple of years by Red Bull and how they handled him. So we'll see. Based on the availability of rides that we could potentially go into that are competitive or not, I think maybe the decision to retire, just go out while you still have the opportunity to go out on a decent ride and not go out on a terrible drive like some of the other lower teams in F1. Maybe it's the better decision.
Yeah, for Perez, I mean, I brought this up on Grid Talk when we were doing the actual qualifying show, that in a lot of ways I see Sergio Perez's situation like Valtteri Bottas when at times at Mercedes, where when Lewis was doing uncommon things with the car, Valtteri Bottas couldn't pass anybody. He would have terrible starts. He would look lost. He would look like he didn't know what was going on. And for a long time, people were calling for his head. And they finally did. And they put in Osama bin Russell, who's been, this year has been generally mediocre. And last year definitely was the better of the two drivers. And that arguably is only the second time really that a teammate has beaten Lewis Hamilton, and in that was more a case of they were having him do R&D work because the car was so bad. He's really only been beaten legitimately once in his career, and that was by Jenson Button back in their McLaren days. For those who want to go and say, well, yeah, he got beat by a certain dipshit from Germany. There's plenty behind that to why that all worked out the way it did. Plus a bad engine at Malaysia that would have seen him win that race, and he would have won the championship that year too. So he wouldn't even have to deal with this 8 championship stuff where they went and where Michael Massey manipulated the whole entire season in one fell swoop. But yeah, there was an interesting race for sure. We'll see what happens with Checo. He ended up being 18 and a half seconds behind at the checkered flag behind his teammate. He was well behind in qualifying as well. He qualified ninth to Fish Lips sixth. So even when he had a bad qualifying run, Sergio Perez couldn't do anything about it. Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda ended up getting the fastest lap in the race itself, so credit to him. The Haas has brought a upgrade package, but it didn't net them much of anything. Hulkenberg almost got a point. He was 2 seconds behind Sargent. Magnussen was 14th. Ricciardo finished last on the road in his return to Formula One after his wrist injuries he suffered at the Dutch Grand Prix. So yeah, let's go through that. So the points heading into Mexico City and the circuit, Circuito Hermanos Rodriguez. Sergio Perez, as I mentioned, 39-point lead. Oh man, Jake Moody actually made a field goal. 39-point lead over Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton has an 18-point lead on Fernando Alonso, who Alonso leads his countryman Carlos Sainz, a smooth operator, by 12. Lando Norris with his second place finish moves up to 6th in the championship. He's 12 points behind one of his BFFs. Charles Leclerc is 20 points behind his teammate Carlos Sainz, and George Russell is in 8th. Was it 28 points behind Carlos Sainz and 40 behind Fernando Alonso. In terms of the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes is 22 points ahead of Ferrari, and McLaren is now 6 points ahead of Aston Martin for 4th in the Constructors' Championship. So those are the two battles to look at. Williams with 3 points on Sunday increases their gap over Alfa Romeo, Alfa Sauber, to 10, 26 to 16. Alfa Romeo is only 4 points ahead of Haas and 6 points ahead of AlphaTauri, but that will, there's not a lot of points for where they're going to be around anyway, but we'll see with how many races to go they have. There's 4 races to go in the season. What those guys can do. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 races to go in the season. What those teams can do in the end, in trying to go and make the championship a little tighter in terms of constructors. So that's it for Formula One, at least for the US Grand Prix. We'll preview the Mexico Grand Prix here in a little bit. Let's get into football. The Niners right now have gotten back into the game, so it's a little bit better than what it was looking like earlier in the evening. But Josh, you can talk about your Jags first and foremost. Let us know. We'll talk fantasy. Jaguars get a win on Thursday night, 31-24 on the road, and Travis Etienne continues to make his presence felt. It's what you guys drafted him for a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, and he's proving to be that dynamic player. And getting a win on the road, it's never easy. So getting one in a non-conference opponent on a Thursday night, give yourself a long break there, 10-day break to your next game, is pretty key, I would say. But what did you take? What were you like and dislike from Thursday night's performance and against Jacksonville, and some of your other takeaways in the world of football and fantasy football?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the Jaguars, of course, I mean, it's been a few days now, but on Thursday, they played and against the Saints, and of course, the big worry was about Trevor Lawrence's knee, left knee sprain, left knee sprain on there, and how would it feel mobility wise, and first drive of the game, took a scramble right ahead and got a first down, and proved that he'd be okay after that, and as long as he was running into a straight line, it'd be okay, and kind of limited his mobility. They didn't really do too many rollouts play action wise, but he was still able to be himself for the most part. He's very efficient, I think, in that game. Obviously, Travis Etienne, 2 touchdowns early on, helped them get out to early lead quickly, and he's proving that he's one of the better backs in this league for sure. And Trevor was able to be effective, be efficient, but defensively they were able to hold the Saints to a couple of field goals. There was a couple of fumbles in that game, one on special teams. The gunner on special teams got hit in the back by the ball, and they caused the fumble there, and then the Saints were able to recover that and get a field goal, and then Christian Kirk fumbled after making a first down catch, and I think that also led to the Saints field goal there. So it was a little disappointing to see that early, giving the Saints opportunities to make it close when it probably shouldn't have been. A couple of weird bounces there, but eventually the Jags got out to a decent lead. Foye Oluokun gets a pick 6, and that game makes it 24-9. And honestly, I mean, I thought, okay, well, they're definitely winning this game. There's no way the Saints are coming back, but then the Saints end up getting 2 touchdowns. I think that what I didn't like is that the offensive play calling in the second half definitely got very conservative. I think part of it is because of Trevor's knee. They're trying to call around that injury and try to manage that, so to not put him in too many compromising situations. And they didn't really have a lot of long developing plays where they could go downfield and attack. I think they were trying to get the ball out of his hands quickly so he wouldn't have to risk getting hurt or anything like that. They had a 4th and inches play where they lined up shotgun and handed off up the middle to Etienne, and a lot of people disagreed with that. I saw online, and I think I definitely disagreed with that play call too. I think they're saying on the broadcast that this probably would have been a QB sneak situation, and I mean, given the knee issues with Trevor Lawrence, I'm not sure if that's the right play call either. But they did have a play against the Colts where they lined up in, I don't know, formation, but they had Tank Bigsby line up in fullback, and Trevor was under center. So I think if they line up in the fullback position and then have Etienne in the backfield and he hand it off to Bigsby or whoever wants to be on the fullback side, then maybe that's a better opportunity for short yardage, although they have struggled in short yardage situations this year. We joke online that it's a force field, that when they get into situations, they make it really hard for themselves to convert for whatever reason. But, it's been an issue this year and even last year to an extent. So that part I didn't like, just that they allowed their play calling, allowed the Saints to get back into the game. Of course, the Saints get back into it, and they tied the game, but then Trevor Lawrence goes out and scores a touchdown to Christian Kirk when they needed it, and then defensively, Buster Brown backing up for Tyson Campbell, and then Darius Williams on the outside as well had some really good plays defensively to seal the game for them and everything. So good road win, 4th win on the road in a row, 4th win in 4 different stadiums: Jacksonville, Tottenham, Wembley, and now in New Orleans. So shows that they're very tough. We'll see how sustainable this is. They've gotten all their wins in a different way. They haven't quite played 4 complete quarters offensively where they were able to get the lead and then put away the opponent. They've all been kind of grinded out type of wins, but definitely want to see how they play next week against the Steelers, who I personally believe that the Steelers are the actual rival of the Jaguars, not the Titans, even though that it's marketed that way. But the Jaguars have always, initially they had modeled themselves after the Steelers when Tom Coughlin was here, and there was always bad blood when they played in the AFC Central between 2 teams. So I think that's why I think they're actually their true rivals. And if you look at nearly every Jaguars Steelers game has ended up being a really good game. So I think that's why they should be considered their true rivals, not the Titans. But the Titans, of course, have always been kind of that annoying team that they play against every time. But we'll see how it goes against the Steelers. The Steelers definitely, they've been an interesting team this year. Haven't really seen too much of them, but they're definitely a tough opponent for sure, as they always are. So we'll see how that goes. Fantasy-wise, obviously in a tough spot. Deebo Samuel's out already, so obviously he's not playing right now. Didn't have any points from Chris Jones this game. I thought the Chargers would give up a couple of sacks and everything, but I guess they accounted for Chris Jones and being able to get him in, from getting any tackles or any sacks or anything like that. So definitely a missed opportunity there. Otherwise, I think you just had a really good game with Lamar Jackson in this one. Lamar Jackson putting up 50 points there. So definitely a missed opportunity there. Otherwise, definitely a okay week, I guess, for me. And we'll just go on to next week. Thinking about the rest of the league, I think one of the bigger stories that's developing is the Buffalo Bills. Seemingly, they've been in jet lag for 3 weeks now since they played the Jacksonville Jaguars on October 5th. So I don't know. The Bills, they did win their Sunday night game against the Giants, but they clearly struggled in that one. And they lost again to the Patriots. So clearly, they're having issues with their season. So maybe the whole Josh Allen is trash narrative that Jalen Ramsey started a couple of years ago, maybe it's starting to take in effect finally. So we'll see how that goes. But that was an interesting one. Of course, the Ravens, the Lions have been pedigreed as a tough team, possible Super Bowl team, and then they laid an egg against the Ravens there. So we'll see if they can bounce back from that loss, or if the Ravens are a better team than we thought. The Lions aren't as good. We'll see. But a lot of weird action. Backup quarterbacks taking over, winning the game. Colts Browns was an exciting game to watch on Sunday. You had the Falcons and the Buccaneers fighting it out. Had a lot of backup quarterbacks playing this week for whatever reason. So definitely kind of one of those weird weeks in the NFL. Obviously, we're seeing it here. The 49ers losing right now against the Vikings, but could be driving for potential score. We'll see here in a few moments. But definitely one of those more interesting and weird weeks in the NFL where teams that you think should have won end up not winning the game, and vice versa. So definitely a good week in the NFL. Definitely good to be 5-2 for Jacksonville.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how you win. It's not about style points. It's not figure skating or gymnastics. So it's another catch for GK. Yeah, there you go. 9 minutes and change to go in this game. Niners down 5 here. Gets a good chip off of that rusher and gets open. Gets another reception. For me this week, right now 3-1. Our dynasty team is a disaster. Vic and I's dynasty team has been a disaster all year. The teams that we hedged on have not produced in terms of fantasy purposes. In real, it's a free run there. That's Christian McCaffrey, of course. So going to go 3-1 this week. Not going to get high points in my league, unfortunately. Vic has Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts, so that doesn't help. So I'm not going to get high points this week. My Pick'em league, I only have 5 wins so far. This would, if somehow or another the Niners come back to win, I would only go 6-7, so it's my worst week of the season. I had picked Las Vegas against Chicago, but then I didn't know that Brian Hoyer was going to end up starting for Las Vegas against Tyson Bagent, whoever the hell he is, and Chicago ends up winning. The Cleveland-Indianapolis game could have went the other way, but and that's with Gardner Minshew put up a huge stat line, but Cleveland with PJ Walker gets the win. Buffalo shitting the bed against New England. I don't know how. The Washington General Commander Redskins not being able to pass block, letting the Giants look like they have a defense. They win with Tyrod Taylor with a 14-7 victory. Atlanta, Desmond Ridder did absolutely nothing except fumble 3 times. And somehow or another, Atlanta won that game. Detroit got boat raced by Baltimore. One of the only competitive games was the Pittsburgh LA Rams game, and Pittsburgh gets that victory on the road. A big win for them. Arizona goes to Seattle and loses. Denver beats Green Bay at home. Denver at home, and they beat Green Bay. So the growing pains of Jordan Love continue there. It's not shocking that Kermit the Frog beat the LA Chargers. He owns them. And it's yet another example of why the LA Chargers are never going to be anything. Philly, I had picked Miami. It probably was a bad decision, but I had really thought, is that a turnover? Yeah, it is. He just threw a pick, didn't he? That's great. Okay, so that's a problem. I'm just trying to get a view here. Brock Purdy, I think he was trying to force it in to Kittle. Or no, he was trying to force it in to Jawan Jennings, and Jennings slipped. Did he tuck it? No, he got it. Yeah, he got it. They're not even replaying it, so that's a huge pick there. Brock Purdy. We'll see if they can get the ball back. 5.5 minutes to go in the game. I'm not sure how many timeouts the Niners have. They have 2. Minnesota has all of theirs. So that's something. Okay. Get into the roundup here. MotoGP, Moto2 is at Phillip Island. They were dealing with massive storms over there. And they ended up having to move the race itself to Saturday instead of Sunday. It's a huge pass, and he overthrew that. They're going to call Mooney Ward for a illegal contact. Yeah, of course. It's what Mooney Ward is. It's what he did when he was in Kansas City. But last year, he wasn't that bad. Now, all of a sudden, he's turned back into the guy that he was when he was in Kansas City. Freaking give him that much money. Fucking asshole. in Moto. So yeah, the top 10 saw in MotoGP, Johan Zarco gets his maiden MotoGP victory. And so that was a huge, but he ended up beating his teammate because Jorge Martin had taken a soft tire gamble. That gamble ended up not working out for him because by the end of the race, sees Johan Zarco for the Pramac team get his first career victory. Pecco Bagnaia finishes second, Fabio Di Giannantonio third, Brad Binder fourth, and Martin fifth. Then that were all together within a second. Marco Bezzecchi, Jack Miller, Alicia Spargo, Alex Marquez, and Enea Bastianini round out the top 10. The standings. The standings going into this weekend's race at Mandalika is 26, 27 points. Pecco Bagnaia leads Jorge Martin. Bezzecchi in third, of course. Binder fourth. Zarco moves up to fifth, 2 points out of Alicia Spargo. And then Maverick Vinales is 17 points back in seventh. Luca Marina, Jack Miller, Fabio Quartararo round out your top 10. In Moto 2, is Tony Arbolino. Yes, this screwing it up thing. Yeah, the Moto 2, the race, Tony Arbolino gets the victory. They moved all the races up, of course, to it was a wet race, half points given out, and Fred Warner's rolling over. That doesn't look great. Oh boy, that is not good. Arbolino gets a victory over Aaron Canet. Philippe Aldeguer rounds out the podium. Alcoba, Joe Roberts, who's been a wet weather specialist over his time in Moto 2. His one Moto 2 victory came in a wet race. Guevara, Tomacat Chantra, Bensinger, Ben Snyder, Graham Bensinger. I'm tearing him into Graham Bensinger, Ben Snyder, Pedro Acosta, and Ramirez round out the top 10. The American OnlyFans American team, Rory Skinner, got a couple of points there as well. Standings heading into Mandalika for Moto 2. Costa, of course, is going to win the championship. He's 56 points ahead of Arbolino. Jake Dixon is 18 points ahead of Aaron Canet. Chantra rounding out the top 5. Close battle. It's 21 points or 21 and a half points between Chantra in 5th and Celestino Vietti in 10th. Joe Roberts is 7.5 points behind Sam Lowes in 13th. Or 14th. 13th and 14th there. He's going to need some big results to get himself up towards the top 10. Best case scenarios, he probably moves up 2 more spots to 12th. So I did those. In Formula F1 Academy, we'll get into Marta Garcia dominates, qualifies on pole for the first race, and gets a oh no. Oh boy. Oh, so at least he walked off. All right. Gets the win in race 1. Marta Garcia And he won over. Oh, that's not. Get into it like that. So, yeah, not damn thing. Marta Garcia, the race 1 winner. And get into after qualifying on pole. Beats Abby Pulling and Lena Buhler for the win. There was a long caution safety or long safety car that after a wreck that was triggered by Schreiner and took out Lovenfoss and Megan Gilks. So that was who was there. They're not even. It's a show less results, so that's not who was involved in that race, wreck or whatever. Lovenfoss, Schreiner, and that's race 3. They're not showing who was involved in that wreck. I'm forgetting who was involved. They're not showing it on the freaking result itself. All right, in race 2, Hamna Al-Kabasi won over Elena Buhler and Jess Edgar. Abby Pulling and Neri Marti ran out of the top 5. And Marta Garcia did not get class. She was the only one that didn't finish the race. Interesting. And then in race 3, Jess Edgar, who had a great weekend, qualified on pole for the race 3, gets the victory over Neri Marti, Marta Garcia, Lena Buhler, Hamna Al-Kabasi, rounding out the top 5. The standings, Marta Garcia gets the championship, as I mentioned, by 56 points over Lena Buhler. Hamna Al-Kabasi finished 3rd, 15 points behind Buhler. Neri Marti 4th, Abby Pulling 5th. And they were separated by 4 points there. Bianca Bustamante is going to be a part of the McLaren Driver Academy, so that'll be something to look at next year. Probably have the papaya livery on whatever car she'll be driving. And then we see who else, because all the teams are going to be involved in this series. All 10 Formula 1 teams will have one representative on the grid as we go into next year. What's it called? Megan Gilks, I think, is stopping her career to go and work for Aston Martin as an engineer. So credit to her in regards to that. Not sure what's going to happen to Marta Garcia. Hopefully she'll be in Formula 3 next year. Her teammate that ran in Formula Regional, another Mercedes junior driver, is moving up from that category all the way up to Formula 2. So, see people on the fast track there. I mentioned something about Tony Stewart. He sold All-Star Circuit of Champions to Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet, who own the High Limit Sprint Car Series. So after, I'm not sure how many years it's been for Tony, it's going back probably, I think, at least 10 years, not more. Tony is selling the All-Stars, and Larson and Sweet are going to continue their rise up to build a brand with 410 Wings Sprint Car Racing, and make a competitor, essentially for now, to the World of Outlaws. Central European Rally coming up this weekend for the World Rally Championship. Cali Rovanpera on watch to go and win a second consecutive World Rally Championship. and read more route and maps there. Central weekend of first, yeah. Rounders include stages across 3 countries: Germany, Austria, and Czech Republic. So that'll be a cool thing. Previous subsection of freestyle and asphalt only route is practically all new pace. So an asphalt rally, all asphalt rally, which is nice. Usually most of the races are in gravel, so it'll be interesting to see a full tarmac rally, and then being in 3 different countries at some during the whole entire race meeting. Cali Rovanpera, 2 races to go, leads by 31 points. So if he holds a 20, what is it? I think 30-point lead. As long as he holds a 30-point lead after this race, he will be a 2-time World Rally champion. Alfred Evans needs to win and hope. And then Neuville's third, 9 points out of Botanic in the World Rally Championship there. Supercars at Surfers Paradise coming up this coming weekend. It's been the battle of the Coca-Cola Erebus team versus the Red Bull Ample Racing 888 Racing team. Brody Kostecki leads by 131 points over Shane Van Gisbergen, coming off of winning the Bathurst 1000. Will Brown in third, Brock Feeney in fourth after falling out of the Bathurst 1000, an impossible victory. He is 18 points behind Will Brown, who will be his teammate next year at Red Bull Ample Racing. Shane Van Gisbergen trying to win another championship on his way out of the supercars. Chaz Mostert, the leading Ford driver, 3 Ford drivers in the top 10 of the standings, possibility of 4 before the end of the season if Will Davison can get past Bryce Fullwood. He's only separated by 17 points in that battle. We'll see. They've made some changes to Surfers Paradise. The chicane, one of the chicanes in regards to the tire stacks and to limit damage and such. So we'll see what happens there. Missed field goal for Greg Joseph, so the Niners still have a chance. And not only do they have a chance to win it outright. With 1:11 to go in the game. And MotoGP or World Superbike, did he just turn it over again? Oh no, he gives us the tip. Yeah, so World Superbike's going in last race of the season, last round of the season. Alvaro Bautista has a 60-point lead over Toprak Raskat-Lioku. Johnny Ray has a 50-point lead over Andrea Locatelli. And for third, Axel Bassani's got an 11-point lead over Michael Ruben Rinaldi. And so that's okay. And, Danilo Petrucci is in seventh. Bautista looking to notch up another World Superbike championship there. Toprak Raskat-Lioku in his last round on a Yamaha before he moves on to BMW. Johnny Ray in his last round from Kawasaki before he moves over to Yamaha. So a lot of changes there. Axel Bassani is going to be taking over Johnny Ray's ride. So lots going on there in World Superbikes here. A lot of lasts and stuff. The NHRA Nevada Nationals, Camping World Drag Racing Series will next to last race. They're going to have points and a half at Pomona. So this is a huge race to give yourself, put yourself in the mix. Leah Pruitt leads by 4 over Doug Coletta, 13 over. That's another turnover. Man. So there you go. Two losses in a row. Oh boy. So now we're getting a little bit argy-bargy there. Yeah, so another amazing performance by the 49ers. So now they've lost steadily. So my fantasy teams are doing good, but the Niners have now lost 2 games in a row, and people are going to start questioning how viable they really are when they're losing to such a shitty Minnesota Vikings team. Pruitt by 4 over Coletta, 13 over Steve Torrance in Top Fuel. In Funny Car, Matt Hagan is 36 points out of Bob Tasca, 69 over Robert Height, and 99 over Ron Capps. Eric Enders is an 85-point lead on Greg Anderson, 93 on Dallas Glenn. In Pro Stock, and Gage Herrera, I'm not even going to bother. In terms of he's got that championship locked up. It's 23 points between Krawick and Hector Arana, between second and fourth. Matt Smith in the middle of that. Lucas Oil, Drag Racing Series and National Top Alcohol Dragster standings. We'll go and just do the math here. 75 points, but Julie Naddis leads Tony Stewart in the Top Alcohol Dragster standings. So 2 more national events to run. Julie Naddis is going to get credit for both of those, and then Tony can only take credit for one of the 2. And then in the divisional races, both of them have one more divisional race to count in terms of their points. Formula E preseason testing coming up this week, so we'll look into that, all the announcements, some of the car liveries coming up as well. We got China, Shanghai and Hyderabad will be hosting Formula E. Hyderabad did host it's of course in Telangana, and so they'll bring back Formula E for a second year. Shanghai for the first time will host Formula E after it had been in Beijing, and then Tokyo, Japan will also host races there. So the season will start in January in Mexico at Hermanos Rodriguez. Then they'll race 2 races at Saudi and Saudi Arabia. One will be the first race will be on my birthday itself. Then Hyderabad, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Then a month break. Then they go to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and then Tokyo. 2 races in Italy. Then Monaco. Then a doubleheader at the airport in Berlin. Shanghai will have a doubleheader. Portland at Portland International Raceway. Which is a month gap between Shanghai and Portland, and then London will host a season finale. 2 further updates. Event Jakarta will not go ahead, and then the second update is likely venue change for Italy. So we'll see what happens with that. So then in terms of, you got liveries, the Neo 333 team will be known as ERT Formula E. Andretti coming off of winning the Drivers' Championship with Jake Dennis. The Andretti Global team will have a red, white, and blue scheme. Pretty straightforward there. Clean and crisp. As far as a new number, so Jake Dennis will race the number 1 on his car as well. Norman Nato race being a 17 with the Frenchman's being a tribute to his late compatriot and friend Jules Bianchi. Oh, that's really that's cool to see. So the teammates there. ERT Formula 1 for Neo 333. Maserati's color livery. Maserati's livery doesn't change a whole lot from last year's. They'll have copper color accents though, so that's the one major change. Then Neo McLaren will have a majority black or flatter black scheme with hints of the papaya in the details. So there's that for the Neo McLaren team. I'm gonna get this is all the news, latest news, bring it up. Previews, and then Jaguar TCS asymmetric livery for them going on. Maserati will have Jan Daruvula racing for them, so they'll have an Indian driver on the grid plus an Indian round, so that'll be great there. All right, last but not least, Indy Next. Chris Griffith's test that took place this past week saw Louis Foster get the lead the test results there. Fastest time over Jacob Abel, Miles Rowe, who's graduating to Indy Next in his first first test as a Indy Lights or Indy Next driver, finishes third. Nolan Siegel returns. Caio Collet, who comes from Formula 3, gets fifth. Reese Gold, Christian Bogle, Kalen Frederick, who's also from Formula 3, tests out, finishes eighth. Michael D'Orlando is coming from USF 2000, battling Miles Rowe, ends up ninth. Bryce Aaron, who's going to be racing for Andretti Global, along with Jamie Chadwick. I don't know why she's listed as a rookie still. She was in the series last year, and so that's that I don't understand. But Yuvan Sundaramurthy was 12th. James Rowe, Callum Hedge, Josh Pearson, Jack William Miller, which I'm assuming is Dr. Jack Miller's son. He isn't as slow as his dad, I guess, so got to give him credit for that. Jonathan Brown, Jace Denmark, I think he's been announced to have a ride next year. And Lindsay Brewer, who's a Instagram influencer, rounded out the test. So those are, you have, Nolan Siegel, you've got Caio Collet, Rowe. So that's, Miles Rowe is going to be somebody to look at. It seems like things are being set up at AJ Foyt's team to where he's going to end up being in an AJ Foyt car as a satellite car with Penske's support. Bryce Aaron, Foster, Chadwick, Nolan Siegel, Rowe, and Bogle. And then, so I mentioned Reese Gold. And then you have talked about Miles Rowan and Yuvan Sundaramurthy. So that'll be one to look at. We'll be following Indy next, probably a little more closely next year on the GSP. All right, so that's all for the roundup. Let's preview the Mexico Grand Prix of Mexico for Formula One. In terms of picks here, I picked first, so you get first dibs, Josh, on the Mexico Grand Prix. Are we seeing win number 16 for Fish Lips?
16th win here for Verstappen. And then I'm going to say second. Let's say Lando gets another podium on second. And then third, I'll give it to Sergio Perez, potentially announcing his final, or not final, but that he's going to retire. So we'll give him a podium here in his home, what could be his final home race.
All right. For me, I'll go with Fish Lips, of course. I'll pick, instead of Lando, I'll pick Lewis. And in third, I will pick Carlos Sainz. So we picked different second and third place drivers there, but same winner. We'll see what, because they're racing in altitude, if any of these upgrades that some of these teams brought are affected. Power units are being pushed to the core because we're getting to the end of the season, so there could be some more mechanical issues. Something to look at there. With it being a regular weekend, you're going to see some drivers making FP1 appearances, rookie drivers running that, so that'll be some different names we'll see in FP1 this weekend relative to the norm. Okay, for the Xfinity Series, the Dead On Tools 250, 40 drivers for 38 spots. And Blaine Perkins, these are the Hour Motorsports. JJ Illy in the 4 for JD. Devin Jones in the 07 for SS Greenlight. Chad Fincham in the 08 for SS Greenlight. Let's see, Lane Riggs in the 11 for Colleague. Myatt Snyder in the 19 for Joe Gibbs Racing. Mozak in 24. Kyle Sieg in the 29. Nobody listed in the 35 for Emerlin Gase. Raff in the 38. Ryan Ellis, Rajah Caruth, Jeffrey Earnhardt, the Alpha Prime drivers. Arkanori Ogata in the 53 for Emerlin Gase. Timmy Hill in the MBM 66. Former guest on the show, Dawson Cram, in the Harmon 74. Josh Balicki in the 91. And CJ McLaughlin in the 28 for RSS Racing. So 2 cars will go home. We look at the drivers that have to. You got those 3 drivers that have that 3-point separation in the point standings. You got, Custer and Hill by 3 over Justin Allgaier. I'm gonna go, and I want to pick Josh Berry. I really do, because this is one of his best racetracks. Make a homer pick, but I think that Justin Allgaier goes and wins his way into the Final 4 I can't spell Xfinity. Xfinity at Martinsville. Phil Allgaier wins and locks into Final Four. And in terms of who's the driver that makes it in, John Hunter Nemechek makes it in, of course. JHN and Austin Hill end up advance with Mayer. So no, the two guys that have been the dominant figures over this entire season will end up racing for the championship. All three guys, really. Cole Custer has shown a little bit more strength here in this playoff. It'll be more what might have been for him in terms of a wild card choice for me this weekend. I will go with I'll go with Parker Retzlaff. Why not? It's been a pick. I think I've been making the pick with Paperboy a lot this year, and he's shown to be a pretty good shoe. It looks like, or it seems like the rumors are he's going to be driving the 2-car next year. So it would be a big step to get into an RCR car, but he has the talent for sure. Josh, what are you thinking in regards to the Xfinity race at Martinsville?
I mean, yeah, it would be, something if Josh Berry were to win, cap off his JRM career in NASCAR, winning where he's won at in late models and winning where he's won at in the first win in the Xfinity Series. That kind of kicked off this run up to the Cup Series for him. But I mean, he just hasn't had the pace or the speed that he's needed this year to be competitive. So it's just really hard to pick him here, even though I want, I would want to too. Like, I know you said you want to, but I'd like to too, but I just don't think it's going to happen here. So I'm going to pick, just say that John Hunter Nemechek goes out and wins this race here, and locks himself in to this final round. Not that he needs any help or anything, but I think he just ends up being the guy on Saturday that goes out and wins this race. So wild card, let's see, well, of the people that we can pick for a wild card, the list gets bigger and bigger every week as we get down to the end of the year here, with only a couple guys really eligible, but something believable here. I mean, it's a lot you can go here with. I'm struggling here with this, but let me see. I almost want to pick, Lane Riggs. I mean, he's making a start here in the Xfinity Series this weekend, and I mean, I could go with him because I mean
that's a good one. It really is a good one based on his background. Former NASCAR, what do you call the NASCAR National Series, Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series champion. That is a good one.
That's Scott Riggs' son, right?
Yep. Yeah, that is his son.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and pick him as wild card. I always confuse Scott Riggs and Travis Kvapil together for some reason, and so I was thinking well, wait a second, Carson Kvapil's not racing this weekend, but I was thinking him and Lane Riggs. But so we'll go with Lane Riggs wild card. Yeah, I'm gonna say for the final four advancing, John Hunter with Mayer, Allgaier advances, and Austin Hill. So think that's a pretty solid. I think Cole Custer doesn't make it in. So, unmute yourself.
We both eliminate Cole Custer there. Thank you for that. I thought I was unmuted, but my fault. Yeah, I mean, it's not that Stewart-Haas doesn't have pace or possibility of pace, but I think it's just a case of when you have the Joe Gibbs Racing team and you have all the energy with RCR, even though Austin Hill has not been as good at this point of the season, you also have Allgaier, who's great on short tracks. I think there's a lot too much going on that's going against Custer, but I mean, the last 2 weeks, Riley Herbst has looked like a freaking hero, so who knows? The Cup Series will race the Xfinity 500 at Martinsville, 36 for 36. Entry list there. Ross Chastain will be racing the Moose fraternity number 1. Should be a throwback to the Hale Melon, but they won't do that. Gumby with Menards and Richmond Water Heaters. Bass Pro for Bald Spot Dylan. Hunt Brothers Pizza for Kevin Harvick. Brad Keselowski with King's Hawaiian. Corey LaJoy with Gainbridge. BetMGM for Kyle Busch. Napa for William Clyde Elliott II. Red X for Hamlin, Discount Tire for Blaney, Mahindra for Chase Briscoe, Action Industries for AJ Allmendinger, Nexletol for Christopher Busher, Auto Owners Insurance for Truex, Interstate Batteries on Chris Bell's car, Motorcraft Quick Lane for Harrison Burton, Xfinity for Bubba Wallace, Pods for Leaf Filter for Justin Haley, Stagefront.vip for Michael McDowell, Quincy Compressor for Todd Gilliland, United Rentals for Ryan Preece, qualified on pole in the spring there and led the first 130-something laps of that race. Hocevar back in the 42 for Legacy. No sponsors listed for Eric Jones or Tyler Reddick, JJ Haley. Oh, Richard will have Reese's on. Yeah. Reese's for Richard. Ally. Biohaven Jacob for No Neck. Monster Energy back on for Gibbs. Ferris Commercial Mowers for Ty Dillon. No sponsor listed for BJ McLeod. And then Suarez Jockey Outdoors by Luke Bryan, who is definitely not an outdoorsy type. All right, so too many things open. Josh, you get first dibs on the Cup Series event. Who wins? Who's your wild card? And who will be the final 4 going to Phoenix?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting choices here that could happen. But I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney winning this weekend to lock himself in to the playoffs. I think, somehow they're going to make it into the championship 4, and they finished second last year in Phoenix, and he's a good short track guy. I think if they bring the right car for him, he'll be able to win the race here on Sunday. So picking Ryan Blaney to make it into the championship 4. Wild card. I'll go with your boy Chase Briscoe, who had a good finish here in this race a year ago. So go with him as my wild card. So all forward wild card. And then the final 4, it's going to be Larson, Bell, Blaney qualifying his way in, and then Byron locking himself in on points, having 30 points to start with. So sorry to Denny Hamlin, who probably committed some action detrimental in this race on Sunday. Truex, door will shut on him. Reddick, try again next year, and Chris Buescher had a good try. So that's going to be the final four, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a pretty good shot there. Blaney did a lot here, has done a lot here in the last few weeks to put himself in the mix. It's not, he's had speed at times, it hasn't been all year, but he's been the most consistent Penske driver. It's why he's still in this spot. Logano has been great there over the years, and this is the moment, this is the time where can Ryan Blaney make that next step in his career. And in a year where Ford has been really bad, come out, possibly go out and win the last two races of the season, and win a championship, it would be huge. And it would take it away from Hendrick Motorsports and Gibbs, who have dominated most of the season. For me, I am going to pick, and I've been picking Tyler Reddick for a while, but I'm not picking him this weekend. You already picked Ryan Blaney. I'm going to go with William Byron. William Byron gets the victory. He's won at Martinsville before. Wins and locks into Final Four. And then Blaney gets in on points with Byron, Bell, and Larson. So that's the one difference. We swap our win picks and drivers who make it in via points. The wild card selection for me, there we got 31. Yeah, 31 drivers. So after that, wild card, you pick Briscoe. I'll go with Preece. Why not? Wild card Ryan Preece for me. As I mentioned, qualified on pole earlier this year. All the Stewart-Haas cars were fast in the spring race at Martinsville. It's very hard to pass with this car on short tracks. So if they put a great qualifying together, you never know if it'll be similar. But if for people who are Stewart-Haas fans, you kind of got to hope for it, because it's been a god-awful year in general. All right, so let's move on to the sim segment. Josh, let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing and in other gaming segments, with console games. They're announcing some console games and stuff. So give us all the details and the rundown.
Yeah, of course. On iRacing side, this week on iRacing we'll start off from the top alphabetical order. ARCA Menards Series, the ARCA cars at Tsukuba Circuit, so actually racing on a road course, not in America, so that's an interesting choice there. That's a good little road course that usually in the lower series and iRacing roadside, like the Miatas and the Formula Fords race on, that's actually a pretty fun track. That's on Gran Turismo from back in the day, so that's a good circuit. Draft Master Series that I've been racing in, that's in Talladega in the trucks, so probably avoid that one because the trucks are honestly just garbage in iRacing. obviously NASCAR Open fixed Cup, Xfinity, and Trucks all are at Martinsville this week. And the Modifieds also at Modified Tour also at Martinsville as well for all the series. IR18, Dallara IR18, the IndyCar fixed at Nashville Superspeedway this week. Gen 4 at IRP this week. You've got, let's see, the other series, I think 87's at Talladega Superspeedway this week, so it's always fun as well. So probably try to hit that one up. Roadside, we got fixed. Yeah, let's go all for that. There we go. The Formula V's at VIR, Formula 4 at Watkins Glen, GT3 Ferrari at Charlotte Motor Speedway, IMSA fixed iRacing series at Sebring, the Touring Car Challenge at Laguna Seca, the Mustang Skip Barber Challenge at Spa, Stock Car Brazil at Hockenheimring. You've got the Formula Fords at Summit Point Raceway, Formula B at Silverstone, the MX-5s, Mazda MX-5s at Rudskogen Motor Center, Open Wheel D USF 2000 at Willow Springs International Raceway, LMP2s also at Sebring, Open Wheel, IndyCar Open Wheel B at Road Atlanta, sorry. The rookie Formula Fords at VIR, the Toyota GR Cup at Willow Springs Raceway, International Raceway, Formula C, Dallara Formula C at VIR, Virginia International Raceway, Production Car Challenge at Silverstone, the Formula B at Suzuka. Let's see, where's Formula 1 here? Their Formula 1 series, where's that at? Open Wheel C at Willow Springs International Raceway, like I said. Oh yeah, and the Formula A to the Grand Prix series, fixed series at Road America. So I guess iRacing simulating what F1 might look like at Road America. That might actually be interesting to race, and if you're eligible in that, so that should be interesting there. Definitely a lot of choices here on iRacing and the road and oval side. Of course, they are beginning to mount their momentum on the NASCAR console game in 2025. So haven't heard any more news on that. I can look though real quick. I don't think there's any more announcements. Obviously, it's still very far away, but looking for get that game to come out sooner rather than later. So hopefully it ends up being a good game. I think Forza came out on Xbox, but I'm not an Xbox guy, so I don't really care about Forza or on Windows. So I think that came out as well. So looking for that. I may try to get the World of Outlaws dirt racing game just to get an understanding of what iRacing might bring to the consoles with NASCAR. I've heard that's a very good game. So looking to potentially maybe get that game soon, maybe and download that on PlayStation just to see what it's like, what we might expect from iRacing. So I've never played, but I've heard it's a good game. So we'll see. But yeah, I think that's what I'll be doing here on iRacing. Probably doing some Martinsville in the Xfinity car, 87 car, Talladega, and then something on the roadside, maybe the GR Cup or something like that. One of the road cars that I'm actually comfortable in and good at competing in competitively. So we'll be looking for that. And as always, if I do decide to stream, of course, that'll be on Twitch TV/usailor2, and go and watch all my stuff there, which I'll try if I decide to. I'll post a link to that and let everybody know if I'm streaming or not. So that'll be where that is. probably if I do decide to stream the Truck Series, the Talladega Draft Master Series, definitely try to do that one maybe once. Maybe we'll avoid another wreck like I have been in the last couple of attempts in that series, so we'll see. But looking forward to getting on iRacing at some point this week. Of course, Twitter been chirping on there kind of lately. Of course, talking about Dale Jr. at Homestead. Talked about lots of other things. Trevor Lawrence clapping back at the media for how they're talking about him and the Jags this past week. Just talking about what we're doing at Homestead and all that stuff, and how things have been happening for the Jaguars and all that stuff. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter, JP Huffine. It's where I'll have all my stuff that you can see. Obviously, passionate takes about NASCAR and Jaguars and everything else. So go on there, follow me. And of course, our YouTube channel, Gripster Podcast, where we'll have everything uploaded there shortly after this recording or later this week. So go in there, subscribe to our channel, follow us, and interact with our content there. So always glad to be back here another week, and glad to be able to talk about it with you. And of course, glad to be able to have friends like Joe to meet at the track and be able to have discussion about this and have fun and everything. So glad to have friends that you can see at the track and everything. So glad for all that. So turn it over to you for the rest of the close.
Absolutely, man. I was talking about it on Sunday because I was enjoying the race. I'm like, I really want to visit Homestead at some point because it just looks like a cool racetrack and it's just great racing and all that. And if it's like Pocono, I love Pocono, so I would probably really enjoy going to Homestead too. Maybe one day, maybe next year, we'll see. You can find, and of course, wouldn't want to do it to anyone else. It's our show. We built this up for, now we're on 4 years and nearly 200 episodes, so wouldn't have been able to do it without you, brother. It's always great to talk shop on Monday nights about motorsports. Going to keep on going with it for as long as we can, honestly. You can find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter X. You can find us at Gripstrip Pod on Twitter X. Trying to figure out how to get our show posted on there. Also on Facebook, Philip G. Matthew or whatever. And probably have to look at Instagram maybe. I don't think they do that, but Philip G. Matthew on Facebook. You can find, or supposedly to get the show over there, definitely check out the YouTube channel for the show. PhilipGMatthew.com is basically the easiest place to go and access our show outside of Podbean, which is our host site. You can get every episode when it's uploaded there. And that's pretty much it. So with that, we'll be back next week, episode 193 of the Grip Strip Podcast, talking about all the things that happened at Martinsville, talking about the Mexico Grand Prix of Mexico, and anything else that's going on in the world of motorsports as the Texas Rangers advance to the World Series and knock off the freaking Houston assholes. Thank the Lord. For Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks as always for listening, supporting, and subscribing to the GSP, and we'll see you next week.